What is good? We're back with a high council. This is being recorded before the USA Baseball participants are announced, but the draft is actually the day after the announcement, so we kind of have to prepare ahead of time for the draft. I'm going to assume that iPump Plastic, of course, is in the top 18 players allowed in the league. I don't think any of the other former high council members are putting in, except for B. Farrell. We'll see if he gets in. I think skill-wise, he's better than anyone in PPP right there. But we'll see if his contributions to the Power Pros Discord have been enough to get him in. But I think he definitely waxes anyone in PPP with no lock-on. Anywho, we got today with us Mattpaz and SrSplash. We're going to be going through talking about the rule book first, and then we're going to take a look at our draft board. So we're recording this before, but so by the time I post this, the draft will already be pretty far underway. I'm not going to post this ahead of the draft and give everyone the secret sauce, but we're going to go through and kind of talk our thoughts about the league, the setup, and some hype and some major concerns that we have. So we'll talk about it. But for those that don't know, USA Baseball and WBSC partnership for our EPL league for the Power Pros Discord. So pretty big deal. We're going to be able to say that I am a USA eBaseball esport athlete, which is pretty cool. And again, we're obviously 18 in the USA. Let's go. Sorry, Ben Zen. That sucks for you, buddy. Mexico, tough. I think. But kind of cool thing, they have that USA Finals for ePremier 12. Best regular season record gets one spot. The winner of the Summit Series gets the other spot, which is pretty cool. And then I'm sure they'll have like an online qualifier for the other four. But we don't like playing lock-on, so we're not going to probably go in for that. So thankfully we got a no lock-on check here. Everything else pretty dumb. No inappropriate content. Lost City Monarchs will live on, of course, which is good. But the logos, we did use AI to make that, coming out with that. So that's pretty tough. We're going to have to see what we do for our logo. Maybe we'll do new color scheme. Maybe we'll keep the same jerseys. We'll see what happens. Not too much success so far. But this is the big thing. There are 18 teams in the league. So last EPL league, we had 10 teams. And like the teams were like fairly thin, but not that thin, I would say. Well, 18 teams, ooh, it's going to be ugly. That's for sure. So we're going to get down there below, but every team is only allowed to have 7 pitchers, which is just going to be brutal because otherwise there wouldn't be enough for everyone. Like there literally can only be 7 pitchers on a team, just numbers wise, which is just nuts. So 18 teams is going to be a rough draft. And we'll just kind of see what teams go strategy wise, because I think there's a lot of usable pitchers, but the rest rules are pretty punishing too, so we'll get to that. Again, this is like trying to get into the league, so it's just saying number 1 is where did you play in this league before. So pretty much anyone in EPL I'm sure is in, maybe PPP, but again, like there's players like B. Farrell that are way better than these PPP guys that are probably going to get in. No offense, of course, but we got B. Farrell can beat these players, no lock on like Compass, Frisk, kind of wax him sometimes. Sometimes he gets waxed by Compass, but that's enough. That's enough to say. Don't need to hurt him too bad. Sounds like Dish is gonna be the one deciding on that, who gets in and not. But yeah, then we're gonna draft 19 player teams, 7 pitchers. So again, benches are gonna be like pretty thin overall. They gotta get all the players to go around. They were saying maximum of 7 pitchers, but I think not only pitchers is going to be the positions that are impacted. Outfielders were very, very thin in just regular EPL. Everyone wants to have like solid outfield. And now in this one with 18 teams, I think the outfielders are going to just be absolutely brutal. So we'll see when the run on outfielders goes during the draft, but I think that's going to be huge. And of course it is snake draft. Kind of interesting situation here pick-wise, because if you pick 101, there's a lot of players that are kind of worth it, I would say. Then you have to wait all the way down for 218, which is like pick 36, so you get the first ranked and 36th ranked, which is pretty shitty. I don't know, what do you guys think is going to be like an ideal draft spot for top 18? There's 18 picks.
Pretty hard to say. I would imagine you'd rather avoid like the first one, two, three picks there because you're just waiting so long for that second player, and I don't know that the premium for the top player is worth it compared to like 12 or something like that.
Yeah. So
As we will see, there's quite a number of S tier pitchers that you'd probably be happy with if you get any of them in the first round. So you're going to want that high second round pick to make sure you're getting, one of those top outfielders as well.
yeah, Splash has seen my draft board, so don't not to spoil it too much, but I'm pretty much happy with getting any of a certain player like level, and then I definitely would rather have that second turn. I think that drop off is pretty big. So we'll see. The draft is going to be interesting though, because the way that's going to work is they're going to do a 1 hour timer in between picks, and then if you don't make your pick, they use your AFK sheet. And this is going to be kind of brutal because with 18 people picking, like the teams are going to be all over the place. So you have to have a lot of players listed, and you have no idea who's going to be on your board. So like you could have drafted 2 pitchers with the AFK sheet and then have a bunch of hitters listed, but then they all get picked. So who knows? Could end up with some like weird overlap on positions. But you can also say, I want to go by star rating, I want to go by in-game cost, which is not great. I would say it's better for hitters and pitchers, but the in-game cost is based on lock-on 3, which is a completely different ball game than no lock-ons. And then this third one, previous draft trends as determined by league administration team. I don't know how exactly they would do that, because if they just say, oh, this person was picked in this spot last time, we had some weird ass picks last round. Like Faded had some weird ass picks for picking players way above, like ECOI, Luna ECOI is like super high. Slime always sometimes questionable, but at least with Sam Matsu and shit like that, he actually does well, but definitely some sus picks, I would say. So hopefully that if they go by this, you don't get like, oh, this person was picked this high last time, but like it was a completely reach last time. This, of course, I think the best use of the AFK sheet will say you have to kind of DM Dish during the draft and say, I'm going to do this on my next pick. But kind of, we do like a Pokemon Dynasty draft, similar stuff. Be like, I'm up in 3 picks. I would like this person, or this person. So, got the AFK stuff. We talked about that. And then they say if there's no picks left on the AFK sheet, you actually have 4 hours. So maybe that's the way to go. Just let your AFK sheet run out. Just kidding. Draft order is going to get randomized. Not much to say there. And then the other interesting thing is, I think that obviously there's a tight schedule to get this league in. They're literally having signups and then the draft the next day. And then the games, they're trying to get in really quick too. So games are going to start the 16th and on the 10th, and you don't even play everyone. So there's 18 teams, but you only have 8 weeks of regular season. So that's pretty nuts. You're not even going to face over half the teams. Crazy. It seems like it would just be better served splitting up into 2 pools, honestly, and then even drafting within the 2 pools, but enough to say about that. Rules are the usual. Crown Diamond, not my favorite stadium, but that's kind of the main WBSC stadium, sadly. Best of 3 every series, just like last season. And they say this one thing about the 1-game series, but that's just for like a play-in. And then here's the big change from the last one. So last season for EPL, they used a pitch count for all the innings for no innings pitched type rules. They were all pitch count, and the most you could sit was 2 games. So this is basically the rules from the Deuce. Literally, I think this is literally the rules from the Deuce, not basically. Which is great for the Deuce, which I thought was pretty well balance-wise. However, we said earlier that you only get 7 pitchers on a team. If you throw so one strategy I used in the Deuce with these rules was you would throw your starter for 6 innings, and then you go 3 relievers for 1 inning to get through 9 innings. You could do that. However, if you fuck up once, you're like never getting out of that hole, because let's say someone has to sit a game, Now you have basically one backup guy. You go extra innings for 2 innings, you're screwed. Like, you don't have enough pitchers, because now in the next game you're sitting someone, and then you can't do the same strategy, and like eventually you're just gonna run out. So this is like pretty nuts, I think, and I think this is gonna impact the league. I think we're gonna see at least a couple teams where it's like you literally cannot throw anyone. But we'll see what happens.
And that doesn't even bring in mood into the situation. Like,
yep.
you might have some eligible pitchers, and then 3 of them are on purple mood, so
Yep.
then your options are severely limited.
Yeah, you get shelled, you have bad mood, or you go to extras, and like you're just completely fucked for the whole year. So I really don't think this is gonna go well. Like, for many teams, if you have a smooth sailing season and like you just get through your starter 6 innings and you throw your 3 relievers, like, you're all set. But or you go with like a 4-man rotation, you throw a complete game shutout every game. Yeah, you'll be fine. But that's really scary. I think that might be the move, is try to go the 4-man rotation route, but it depends who you get pitching wise, because if you get a couple of shitters, like, again, this 18-team draft, you're gonna have some shitty pitchers probably. So can they even get through their 1 inning or 3 innings or 6 innings? We'll see what happens.
I've got to imagine there's going to be 1 or 2 teams that may sit there and try and take all 7 of their pitchers in their first, 10, 12 picks, just to avoid having those like 2 shitters at the end.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes strategy-wise, because you're going to have some shitters on the roster for sure with this 18-team draft. 3-batter rule. You just got to face someone ever, and then you have to sit out an inning. I think there was actually a game last season early on versus, I think, Greg the Egg in the comments. It's like, hey, what the hell? He's not doing the 3 innings, but I honestly had no idea. But then I looked back at the rules and I was like, oh shit. But got away with it. Anyway, I got to stream the games this time. I think Elgato's hooking up the league, which is pretty sick. And that's also good too, because now you can definitely say no cheating. I don't think we really had any issues with cheating for the most part in EPL, but I think it's always good to have that video accountability. Disconnects, bunch of shit there, not going to really matter, I think. And the playoffs, so top 8 teams from the league. So top 8 out of 18, but you don't even play everyone. Honestly, I have no idea how they're going to do the schedule. That's kind of like a big point. Like, does everyone, like, is it basically 2 pools? Is it just random? And like, I have no idea how they're going to do it.
You gotta wonder if that's something where they may seed players, based on prior record, and try to have people have a balanced schedule. Based on how rushed this seems, I feel like it may just be random, and people may have, 6 of the top players of the tournament, or the whole tournament. Those may be the 6 of the 8 that they're gonna play.
Yeah, I doubt at this point it's going to be seeded, like you said, and knowing how it goes, it's going to be picked out of a hat. Anywho, tiebreakers. We got head-to-head, which you're not even going to have. That's probably not going to come into play based on what we just said. You're not even playing half the league. So probably going to come down to run differential, and then 1-game playoff. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we don't have any 3-way ties, because trades. I did ask the question, can you trade draft picks? Because, again, someone may want that 1.01 and just be like, I want the number 1 pick no matter what, because I'm addicted to number 1 picks. Maybe if B. Farrell gets in the league, he's going to do that. But they said no trading picks, so no pick trades. So you can't trade until after week 1, which, yeah, whatever. And then I don't know if, we got free agency below, but, again, maximum pitch count of 7. Pitcher count of 7 and 19 players. Free agency for the most part, not a huge deal, but again, like, even if you get screwed pitcher rest wise, you can't drop a pitcher to pick up another pitcher. So unless like it's just performance thing that you're gonna pick up, you can't get anyone else. And obviously, like, the waivers are gonna be completely thin with this type of draft with 18 players, but nothing else really. So just kind of, like, obviously you can't pick someone up in the middle of a series, but whatever. And then rookie draft, there's not even 18 players to add, so don't have to worry about that. Disputes, you gotta settle it in the ring, as always. Just kidding, and good luck, have fun. Alright, that's pretty much all the rules. I don't think there's much to say other than 18 teams, pitcher very limited, and rest is very punishing. But I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
have any other takeaways.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting setup because I feel like this is designed to showcase the USA talent in this game. And there's some rules here, 18 player draft and rest rules that are going to severely limit the team quality. So I just wonder how that's going to kind of play out.
Yeah. Anything else, Splash?
I think it's time to get into the players.
Yeah, and the one other thing to say too is obviously this is a no lock on league, so it's kind of good and bad about the team. Like, someone's going to be using some really shitty pitchers, so at least no lock on you can hit. But also, a lot of these players that are going to be joining, I think, don't really play no lock on. You have the top EPL people that play no lock on. You have maybe a couple of people returning, I guess, but like a lot of these players are going to be playing at least lock on 1. If not, they'll just straight lock on 3 from WBSC. So we'll see what happens. Can they hit with no lock on? All right, here I have kind of a ghetto draft board. I'm not gonna lie, I got so lazy during the middle of this. So this is actually like a mixture of my season 1 draft board and also season 2, and I literally still have the draft order from last time. Shout out when I had the last pick. But we'll just leave that in there for that when we can copy paste it later. I kind of like use this during the draft and keep it updated along with the dish setup. But this is what I have for a draft board. I don't go completely by this draft order, so this is like my individual player rankings, and I just go by position. And it's always shitty too because it's two-way position, but just kind of walking through my thought process as I do this is I have like a general idea of like I would never pick a player in a tier below one of these top players, but I could definitely go a different direction within a tier during the draft depending on my team, depending on how position runs are going at other positions and things like that. So again, my thought process here as I kind of group these pitchers up, I think any of these pitchers would be great to get. I'm definitely putting these 4 I would say are like SS tier, honestly. Myojin, Unkai, Mailman, Kiba, and Allen's like just below. But what do these 4 have in common? Answer: they all have an original fastball, which is like just disgusting in this game. Original pitches are gross. For those that don't know, you might have seen in some of our other leagues, we literally had Tampa Bay Rayquaza just make a team of original pitchers and have one of the better pitching staffs. But with an original fastball, they don't use that much stamina, and you can just spam it all game, and it's very hard to hit. And again, with these pitching rules, I think that original fastball is just the way to go. And then there's other pitchers here that are still just great: Allen, Daigogetsu, Doe, Asa, Yakimask, and Evil Atsumori. Yakimask definitely not there for pitcher, but he is just that good of a hitter. And again, like, could you move these orders around? Yeah, like, is Doe really probably that high? Probably not. I would probably say some of these other players are better than him, but we got a soft spot for Doe. He's a good DH. Asa is pretty good. Daigogetsu, I just hate facing, so I like having him on my team. And then Yakimask is just a tier on his own, I would say, as a catcher. So I have to put him in the S tier. Is he as good of, like, his star count's obviously very high, but like, is he a top player? Probably not, but like, he's versatile where he fills 2 spots. He has pretty good stamina, which should be good. And then I like, last time I set this up, I sometimes like double put people in positions because I'm like, I would still rather have this person as my second baseman over everyone else. But whatever. And then outfielders, I think Toy is worth the S tier just from his defense. And then I said Oda is actually, I have rank 1 right now. Why do I have Oda rank 1? Because he can actually, whatchamacallit, he can throw. I don't think this is going to have it, but I did have, stole that. But basically, Oda does not count as a pitcher, and he throws like 155 or something, and has like a good circle change, and he's got like S stamina. So it's literally an extra pitcher when everyone else has 7 pitchers. I think that is like kind of broken in this setup. So even though Oda he's a very good player, and honestly he's better in lock on than he is in no lock, but he's still good. He's got like S power, he got homer or whatever. But because he can pitch, he has to be number one right now. I think that's my take on it, but we'll see what happens. And then some people love Toy too. In this type of setup, I have Oda and Toy ranked above all these other pitchers because I think Oda for his pitching and plays outfield and plays third base, and then Toy for his elite defense in the outfield. And the outfield, as we're gonna see, is like super thin. Remember, there's 18 teams times 3 outfielders starting. It's pretty brutal. It's gonna get pretty thin out there, so just locking down a spot early would be sick. But I think Toy will go like 1 or something. And then we have, I put all the S tier pitchers, and then I would rather have an S tier pitcher probably over all these guys, and then I would like Tomozawa. Tomozawa's he's similar to Oda in that he can pitch even though he's not a pitcher, and again doesn't count as a spot, but I would say he's not nearly as good as a pitcher as Oda, so I would have to put him below these other pitchers. But I could honestly see myself in the middle of the draft being like, fuck it, Tomozawa's going. The reason I'm have Tomozawa that lower compared to everyone else is I think that there are way more serviceable backup shortstops, secondary options for me at shortstop versus Oda maybe, and then even especially for the outfield. But what do you guys have thoughts on this S tier here?
I think there's a pretty clear differentiation between the positions here. Just pitchers and outfield where all the premium is. And then one thing that I think is interesting there too is you have players that are the opposite, like Papillon, whose primary position is a pitcher, but you mostly play him in the field, so he has like the opposite negative effect for those roster spots.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I think that the two ways are definitely not nearly as valuable as they once were.
Yeah, the two ways used to be kind of you're taking them for the fielding, and then you get the extra arm if you ever need it. Now, with that limitation, you want the guy that's actually focused on pitching.
Yeah, so not only do you have shallow pitching roster spots, you also have shallow fielding spots. So every time you take out your position player from the field, you have to replace them in the field too. And also, they're typically not that good at pitching also. So I would say Yakimask is the one that's worth it just because he's so much better at like being a good catcher than everyone else. And he's still like a pretty good pitcher, so he's like a plus at both. But other than that, like, I definitely had to drop Papillon, and like I would honestly say I'd drop him lower. He was higher on here for my last season. And I had to drop him down. I'm like, fuck, he shouldn't be this high. He's way lower than this dude and way lower than this dude. But then I got lazy, so.
He could, when we were doing that earlier, he could have kept dropping if we really sat down and thought about it.
Yeah, like, would I take, like, there's some players I'm like, yeah, whatever. But like he's pretty solid. Like, obviously start count wise, he's pretty good. But we had him on our last City Monarchs team, and I would honestly say that like he's okay, but he's not amazing. He had like 1 homer and extras in like a close game, and I was like, yeah. Other than that, didn't really do much all year. He didn't even make the All-Star team, if I remember. All right, that's enough about. We didn't even talk about that. Was not even an S tier guy. Get the fuck out of our S tier conversation, Papillon. Let's talk about A tier. So this is a little bit bigger tier here that I made. But at the top of that tier, we have Kiyomoto. I took Kiyomoto with the 11th pick last time, I believe. Obviously, hitting-wise, just disgusting. And he's actually pretty good in the field. He is, though, at first base, which who really cares if he's that good at first base fielding? So that is why he is just below this S tier. Like, if I had to make another tier cutoff, if this was all S plus, let's say, this is S, and then it's all A. But I digress. So we have Kiyomoto, and then I say the big boy Data. Again, I think he's just so much better than all the other catchers that he deserves to be that A tier, and he deserves to be this next spot. And then we got, I basically put all the outfielders that are solid because, again, last time I got locked out of the good outfielders, I would say, for the most part. There's just such a run on outfielders because there is so little outfielders. And like you can see, I kind of was putting like the two ways out there for whatever reason. But All these guys are not even outfielders really, except for Toy. So you just have Toy, and then really that's the only S tier outfielder. And then basically it's just take your pick of whoever you like from these A tier here. You could kind of, I could see you justifying any other order of this. I do think Kagami is actually down at the bottom of this tier with no lock on. That E contact is a little more tough. But everyone else, I think you can just take your flavor that you like. So you have the run on outfielders there. And then honestly, Raigo like could also move up in that tier. He can play outfield, that's just not that well. And then Takimoto is another like game-changing bat. So I would say and still pretty decent defense, not amazing, not terrible. So I got Takimoto up there. Again, these are like the teammates. Oh man, the teammates on that success team or whatever. And then we have some elite shortstop options: Kamira, Kirisaki, and Kirigane. I really like all those guys. And I think that is, and then Kirigane is like another pretty decent infield utility person. That's like the S speed one with like the bandana mask. And then I put all of those people basically on top of these A tier pitchers. So we can talk again. We're doing this video before the draft, so, and I'm posting it after the draft, so we'll see what actually happens. But basically, I think that you get into this A tier, and like the difference between an A tier pitcher that I rank and a B tier pitcher, like it's decent, but the difference between some of these outfielder or fielder positions, it's just gonna go off a straight cliff. So even though that, would I say like in a nutshell, is Afukare maybe better than Kagami, like yeah, I would probably say that. But would I say, oh shit, I have like 50 other pitchers I can use and like 10 outfielders I can use, then that's why I have kind of all these outfielders that high. But so then you see this next run on pitchers, because I'd like, all right, I can't justify passing up some of these guys. But like depending on my team, this is like one of the rare cases. Like if I already have an S tier pitcher, I might just say, fuck it, skip this tier. I gotta start pulling from some of these B tier hitters.
I think getting outfielder in round 2, assuming you get one of your S tier pitchers, it may have to be the move, just because, like we had mentioned, that drop off is so significant.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are going to go try and get after that outfield early. So you could, with 18 teams drafting, you could very easily, by the time round 3 comes around, you may be down to only one, maybe none of those A tier guys left.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see pitchers wise how aggressive people get, and then outfielder wise is going to be just a huge drop off. Like you can see, even just I go like this, you got 11, and I go like this, and you got 18, but like it's going to be narrow, and a lot of these guys are from this pitcher category too, so really there's less.
Some of these A tier pitchers are also interesting for the format of this league. Like Aoba has pretty bad stamina, so do you use one of your pitcher slots on a high pick with him, and then if he's not in great mood when he pitches, he could kind of screw your bullpen up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And like he was definitely much higher on my last season list, but I just had to keep sliding him down. I'm like, I think he's very good, of course, and like borderline unhittable sometimes. However, like if I'm in a vacuum and I don't have a pitcher yet, and I'm at this pick and I'm like, I gotta take Aoba or I gotta take Maguro, Yamino, Reibu, I can't see myself actually taking Aoba in this spot. I definitely have to go like a higher stamina guy just to make sure I can actually eat innings, because this is gonna be brutal. I agree. Any like disagreements so far as general strategy or any egregious rankings that you see, or A tier no, or not?
One thing that's tough is with the outfielders. You know, some of these guys are those traditional, great hitting, but D speed outfielders, like Vanguard, where if you don't get that fast center field option, it's going to become even more of a liability.
Yeah, it's going to be tough if like he's the only one left in that tier, and it's like I also already have like a good bat. Like if I don't have a good bat, like yeah, maybe I need that pop in my lineup. But it's gonna be one of those shitty situations where like, ah shit, I really need some defense outfield defense, but he's like the only top outfielder left. We'll see. That's gonna be shitty. But
It'll be interesting to see how the draft goes, because I mean, it seems like we can see there's clearly a premium on pitching and outfield, but you have to wonder if somebody else will try to go for some of the other position players early on.
Yeah, so let's see. I think I have oops. Let's go to drive because I had it open earlier. I had the other order lined up, so
I mean, I could easily see Tomozawa, sliding down, maybe late first, early second, just based on, even if shortstop does have that drop off, people may just say, look, I need the pitching.
yeah, so this is last season, and like I had renamed it as if I was going to use it, but then I did a different copy, blah, 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 whatever. But like you can see, besides some like reaches and stuff, like Tomozawa did go second round, but I took Kiyomoto, but like Go and Kagami, I would say, kind of reaches as well. So you had Toy, bunch of pitchers, and then I would say 2-ish reaches. Yakimask, I guess, is the 2-way. Tomozawa went, Takimoto, Isayoi, and then we had F data, D data. So again, catchers were kind of the early flavor last time, and a lot of pitching. So catchers and pitching. And then I think you had that third round where maybe it started the outfielder run. We had Toy already go, Victor, Rygo. I remember they all went off the board at one point. Garcia's one, Sakigake, Tanoji, Mine, Hatani. Yeah, that was kind of like the run right there. Vanguard, Kyle Morales, Murasame. I remember I wanted Murasame with this pick, and I was like, no. Anywho.
I'd be surprised if Toy gets out of the top 5, but if he does, and you can get him, that just frees up your corner outfield where you don't need as much speed. You could hope Toy would be able to cover those gaps.
Yeah, 100%.
You could take a guy like Vanguard.
That's why it's like, I have Toy at 2. Like, honestly, I could see anyone, like, it's justified if someone goes Toy 1 or above. And then I would honestly say top 5 or any top 5, you could go 1. Doesn't really matter. Just whatever strategy you like or whoever's your favorite. They're all worth it. That's why it's like, I don't want the number 1 pick. I'd rather have number 5 pick or whatever. But even lower would be okay. I'd be fine. I'd say top 8. Depends. Like, you're still good with all these guys because you're getting a better player on the second turn. So we'll see. I kind of honestly started getting lazy after this, so I have B tier here, and you can notice outfielders wise, I say yeah, all A tier, and then no B tier. So I do think there is a pretty good drop off in the outfielder quality after that. So again, really want to hopefully get that top outfielder on my first turn, at least. As we said, I think that's going to be the target spot to try to snag an outfielder. If I don't get Toy, of course. If I get Toy, that kind of opens up the rest of the team, which is dope. But Papillon, again, I probably wouldn't even consider him for the most part. Go, kind of similar to Papillon, I would say, where like he just is pretty good at both, but not amazing at either. So it's like, do you really want to use up one of your roster spots where you're going to have to fill in for both of those guys? I don't know. And then, I don't know, catchers-wise, I think I might drop Kyushu in my ranking a little bit. So last season, I took Kyushu with like the 6th round pick or something, and it was kind of like everyone else was kind of like surprised, I think, at the time, because they all were going on good catchers guys. So a lot of these catchers went above Kyushu, but I knew that in the game, like, with you have good stamina, like you don't really need good catcher for the most part in a single game. Like in WBSC, yeah, it's dope because going from game to game you get more stamina and shit, and like stamina carries over. Stamina doesn't carry over in these type of games. You reset every time, so you're starting full stamina. So honestly, he's pretty solid. But now that stamina is going to be such a premium, we'll see. If I need to, depends on like your shitty pitchers, honestly, stamina wise. I think all three of these guys, Ichijo, Sendo, Kishida, are just such great bats. They're worth that B tier spot. And like honestly, you could say any of those guys are low A tier just because they're like kind of game changing bats. And then these shortstops all are pretty solid as well, defensively and offensively. So that's pretty sick because otherwise you're eventually going to get into the I'm only good at defense tier. Third base, again, these are not even typically third base. We do have Fukuya, who's another game-changing bat. But again, a lot of these guys are like in multiple rows, so it's like kind of stupid. But that's kind of how I worked on my B tier. And then B tier pitching is kind of like a lot of starters that can try to go 9, basically, just in case. And then some elite bullpen guys. Again, Go I probably wouldn't actually put there, but Yakiman 2 is good out of the pen, and then Fukumizu is honestly like one of those rare, because outfielder is so thin, he's worth one of those roster spots, I think, where you just primarily play him in outfield and use him as like a 1-inning guy. And then a lot of these guys are just like starters.
Yeah, like we had discussed earlier, with these first basemen, in the WBC game with the lock-on, a lot of these guys with low contact, high power, see a lot of them throughout the lineup. I think you're going to see a lot of these guys get taken, and then people aren't used to hitting with no lock-on. They're going to have some pretty shitty averages going for homers with guys e-contact.
I would say that the people that are in EPL, for the most part, they typically draft high contact guys for the most part. So a lot of these high power, low contact guys are actually like available pretty late, except for like Slime, because he likes the high power guys. So honestly, and he's actually good with them too. So like Sam Mamatsu, for example, is high power, low contact, but he hits well with them. But yeah, so a lot of those guys are going to be available. So it's like, do you really want to reach? So like Sendo is one of those rare cases where he's like SS and he's nasty at hitting at both. And same thing for all these three guys. But you're going to see in that next tier, like a lot of these guys are like that low power, high contact. So all these guys, I imagine, like are going to be there for, get the fuck out of there, but they're going to be there for the most part. So it's like, you're going to have options here in this first base tier if you want just a high power guy. So unless you're getting one of these elite guys, it's like not really worth it, I would say. And I think that other people are going to draft this group earlier probably than I will. So I think I'm not going to get any of these guys, but I should be okay to get like replacement level people at this level. So
I mean, even looking at the A tier first baseman, unless Kiyomoto just for, kind of like Doe, where you kind of have a soft spots for him, really hard to justify taking any of these three or any of these B tier first basemen over some of these outfielders.
Yeah, it's just nuts how big of a drop off. Like, it's like, how bad do you need to get? Like you have Kushida, and then it's like, oh man, I could take Kushida, or I could take Kyle Morales. It's like, man, it's gonna be a big drop off. It's gonna be brutal.
I think this might be a draft where everybody finishes and is not happy or not very confident with it.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to have a lot of holes, but it's just going to be like, where's your holes? So how can you minimize it? I think almost everyone is going to have at least one terrible defense outfield spot, if not more, unless they like say, you know what, my first 3 picks are outfield, and then good luck everybody else. Yep. But also at the same time, you can't sacrifice that, like that defense up the middle, which we know can give you just terrible blooper hits. Shout out Slime with Georgia. But yeah, I don't know what else to say.
And at this point, you're seeing the Go top on. Kind of hard to justify them, even if they're normally staples of people's teams. I was always a big fuck you guy, but here it's just tough to really justify taking a third baseman.
Yeah, I think you have to be like elite hitting and also plus defense to justify any of these picks. So it's like, if you're like like Sendo, I don't think you can necessarily draft him where it's like you're going to give up those extra bloopers, unless, of course, it's like such a big drop off everywhere else. So I don't see myself taking someone like Sendo. But at the same time, like, some teams are going to have no threats in their lineup at the same time. You know what I mean? Especially because a lot of people like to contact hit with no lock-in in the first place. Like, if I have good pitchers, I'm just not going to be scared of your team at all if you have no one that can take me yard. So it's like kind of like a balance of trying to handle having no pop at all in your lineup and then also being able to field and also being able to pitch. So no one's going to be able to balance all three, I think.
You gotta wonder if someone decides to go all in on offense. It'd be
am
interesting to see in a no walk on league.
So in the last draft, Penguin Pouch picked like his first 8 picks were all offense, and then he just made do with pitching, and like he had like a top team. I think he finished maybe first in the regular season. Yeah, I think he edged me out by a game, and like had the top record. So like it does work, but in this, you better be able to pitch with some really shitty pitchers. Like your ace is gonna end up being like Easton Murray or some shit, or some really shitty guy. If we go like that, and like I ranked a lot of pitchers here, and then eventually gave up. But yeah, it's gonna be a huge drop off eventually. So you don't want to be stuck. Again, everyone has to take 7 pitchers, and there's gonna be like no leftover. You don't want to be stuck with like only Suzaku. Honestly, Suzaku could be not that bad, but there's like
don't
you're
want to
gonna
have
be stuck with some
Zenzai.
shitties. Yeah, you got Zenzai as your pitcher, and you're throwing 2 pitches, and you're out of there. So good luck. You can't even throw every pitcher an inning because you have 7 pitchers and there's 9 innings. So I don't even know.
Yep.
It's nuts.
Yeah, Frisk used to do that strategy a lot in the Deuce, where he'd throw every pitcher 1 inning, and they never would have to sit. This one can't even, like you just mentioned, can't even do that. Someone's gonna have to eventually eat up some innings.
Yep. Again, this is like at this point, I just was not even adding people to this list. So like in the middle of the draft, I'm gonna have to add more players and stuff. But this is what I had last time, basically ranked. And again, at this point, like there's no reason doing the AFQ sheet this far ahead because the players are going to go off the board so fast and you have no idea what your team's going to look like. So why would I bother ranking all the players when it's like going to be such a shit show? That's why I'm like pitchers I can rank for a little bit because like whatever. But again, I didn't even bother at this point. It's kind of like a general like, oh yeah, this person's way out of that tier. Like I would just put them all in order of cost, but then the cost is based on lock on 3. So pitchers that just throw hard are good and no lock on. So like it's all fucked up, but kind of moved up some guys. Like I remember Sudo was like way down there. Shindo, Horse Run, I like all those guys. Karasuma, they were all pretty far down, so we moved them up. But otherwise, like we'll see. There's gonna be some like gems that are on there, but I think that's what's gonna be the big deal in this league is like who can perform well with mid pitching. Because like if you go back to back aces, you're still kind of on the hook for either like 3 innings a game. So let's say you take 2 studs. You're either set for 9 innings for 2 games, so then they have to sit and you have to do a 4-man rotation. So then you're good for like half your games, but then half the games are going to be a shit show because your team sucks dick. And also, your other pitchers probably suck dick unless you're going like 4 straight pitchers and then your team's going to suck really dick. Really suck dick. But oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry. This is like our pre-USA baseball thing, and we're not selected yet, so I don't have to agree that no more cussing. So I got to be better about that, but I'll be doping. Anywho, yeah, I don't think we need to talk about these bottom tier guys. Who's got some good fielders, outfielders. You have bodies, and obviously decent speed out there. And then we got some decent fielders, more decent bats, and then catchers that have good catcher. I think that's pretty much it.
They were sitting here being like, I don't think we really need to talk about them. But realistically, they're going to make up the vast majority of your lineup.
Yeah, that's my round 5 pick. Like, jeez. Yeah, so I think every team is going to have like 2 good players, and then it's going to be like, whoa, where did everybody go?
I do think it is interesting that you're playing 8 people out of 18, and you could just have 2 divisions out of that and make much more well-rounded teams, but they decided not to do that. Just a thought.
Yeah, and you're not even playing everyone, so like, you could get really lucky and not have to face any of the top pitchers. Like honestly,
Yep.
especially if one team drops 2 and you don't face that team, you're like sick. I'm free. You're gonna face all the shitty guys. So we'll see. I mean, you're gonna have to make decisions during the draft and go from there. Any other like strategy ideas before we do the draft?
It's kind of tough to plan out when you don't even know what your draft slot is yet.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because again, like we had mentioned, if you get stuck with one of those top 3 picks, you're probably taking Oda or Toy, and then your mentality completely changes.
Yeah, of course too. Like I have, like let's say I get pick 17 or whatever. Like I'm not gonna get a pitcher on my first pick because as we already said, all these guys are gonna be gone probably. Let's just say that. So let's say they follow my draft board. Let's say this leaks early. They get this, and I have picked like 17. All these guys are gone. All these guys are gone. Like, am I gonna take what, 2 outfielders, or am I gonna go like outfield pitcher, outfield bat? I think obviously one of those picks has to be outfielder at that point. Because so again, you have pick 17 or whatever, pick 17, 18. You're going to pick 2 guys, and then another, 36 players are going to be gone by the time you get back up?
I think it would take...
You're going to be way down here.
I would be... Unless you're ending up with Yakumask, I think you have to come out of the first 2 rounds with a guy that you can call your ace and an outfielder.
My hot take prediction is that there's going to be multiple catchers taken in the first round.
Yeah, I think catcher, like we didn't really even talk about catcher, but there is a big drop off in catcher too. But honestly, like you have the top few, but after that, they're all like very, very similar, I think. So like outfielder is like whoa, we're going off a cliff, and then catcher, it's like a very short cliff, and then it's like, okay, yes, we're all shit, but we're shit together. So like I think that like the average outfielder is going to be way worse than like the average catcher is comparatively. I don't know, that didn't really make sense, but it makes sense in my head. But yeah, catchers is another one too, because people love to have that good catcher ability. So we'll see. We're gonna end up probably with like fucking Sakai on my team or some shit. But
it's gonna be funny when people just are all in on the good catcher just to help out their pitchers with the stamina, and it turns out their catcher has like no arm and they get run on all game.
Yeah, and a lot of the players in EPL love the run. I can say that right now. We got like Greg the Egg, we got Compass. They love running. So you know that people are gonna pick high speed teams, especially with no lock on. Good luck. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting draft spot. Like I would love to get, again, obviously I have an S tier. I would love to get an S tier player on my team, but at the same time you don't want to pick too high and then miss out on one of the outfielders on that turn. So
I think that
I would love
8 to 10 range is probably, you're gonna get one of your like low end S tier pitchers, and then let's say there's another. So even then, it's still like another 20 picks before. If you had pick 8, it's basically another 20 picks down before you're up again.
And like we did talk about Tomozawa and Oda being like an extra free pitcher. I think there are more pitchers like that, but I think Oda is the only like solid one. So there's Oda and there's shitty Oda. I think they're both pretty good pitchers, and then after that it's kind of a drop off. So like regular Oda should be kind of high on this list, I would say, just because he gives you that extra pitcher. But so like I would probably put him pretty high, maybe like high B or high C, low B. I'd rather have Fukuya.
Yeah, again, that's something
Should
where
put it
you
right
sit there, and I can imagine someone coming in, if Oda gets put on the mound, someone freaking out and being like, "Hey, that's an extra pitcher. That's cheating."
Yeah,
That's again just
I
something
already asked it.
so you
So
gotta figure out in advance.
yeah, I already asked that. They said you're good to use him. I'm like, all right. Oh, Oda's number one then, because like otherwise Oda's not my number one for sure. Plays third base and he plays outfield. Like he'd be a top outfielder, yeah, but he's not good defensively. So all these guys are solid defensively. If he can't pitch, then he's not that good. Yeah, I think we rambled enough. Unless anyone has anything else.
Go Monarchs.
Yeah, go Monarchs. Let's go. Well, we'll get another post-draft video. I think that'll be our next one, but we'll try to post this one like middle of the draft while the iron's hot, you know. Assuming we're in the USA Baseball League. Until next time, peace.